How many of you guys have heard about or know what exponents and powers are? Like, what does this mean? 2 to the third power, right? What does it mean? 2 times itself 3 times. It means 2 times 2 times 2. The answer is 8, right? 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Simple enough? With these, that 2 is known as the base, and the 3 is the power or the exponent. Okay? Simple enough? Now, one problem that a lot of people mess up. What is the answer to that? Four? Negative 4? How many people say 4? Is it 4 or is it negative 4? I agree it's a 4. But is it positive or is it negative? Now, there is a humongous difference between these two problems. When you see a number that's raised to the base, if it's in parentheses like this, that means take everything underneath that exponent, in this case the negative 2, and multiply it by itself that many times, right? So negative 2 times a negative 2 would be a positive 4. This one, what this means is negative of 2 times 2. What is the negative actually raised to the power in this case? No, this exponent is only attached to that base. This is the 2 that's getting squared. So you're basically saying, I'm going to ignore the negative for a minute. What's 2 times 2 would be 4. But then, throw a negative out in front. This type of problem in this notation, that is very, very commonly messed up. But there is a humongous difference between these two types of problems. If you see no parentheses, ignore anything in front of it and just square it. And likewise, if you had to do a problem like 7 minus 2 squared, is that the same thing as 7 minus 4 or 7 plus 4? Is that negative going to turn into a positive here? No. 2 squared is 4, and then you do 7 minus 4 is 3, right? So as soon as you see it written like this, it becomes pretty easy to say, yeah, I would leave that as a negative. But for some reason like this, a lot of people think the answer is positive 4. But it's really, really, really not. Okay? How do you say that? You could say 7 to the second power. What's another way to read that? 7 squared. Does anybody know why that we can use the word squared? Like, I don't know about you, but I don't see any squares in there. Why do we use the word squared? Geometrically, this can be drawn as, think of it like, find the area of a square that's 7 by 7, which would be 49. So yeah, if you want to think geometrically, this is the same thing as this. That actually is why we use the term squared. What's the word for if it's raised to the third power? How do we read that? 7 what? What? Cubed. Where is their cube? I don't know about you, but I don't see any little boxes in there. But that's exactly where it is. If you think geometrically about a box that has a height of 7, a width of 7, and a depth of 7. And you say, find the volume of that. How would you find the volume of it? You go 7 times 7 times 7, which is like 343. But that's actually why we use the term cubed. Do we have a word like that for the fourth power? We don't, because you would actually have to have some four-dimensional shape, which is really, really hard to draw. But that's actually why we use the term squared and cubed. Make sense? How would you do a problem like this? Negative 3/5 squared. What does that mean? It means negative 3/5 times what? Negative 3/5. What do you get? What's negative 3 times negative 3? 3 times 3 is 9. Over 5 times 5 is 25. So it's... Make sense? Simple? How many people have done this stuff before? Like, this is easy stuff. Great. Generally speaking, everybody open up to page 29. Generally speaking, this stuff shouldn't be that new to you. But I will show you exactly where most people make the mistakes. Page 29. The first few problems, very few people have much trouble with. Number 2. If it says write that in using powers represented for that geometric model, what would you write? Like, how big is that shape? What is this? It's a square, so we're going to have an exponent of 2. What is squared? 4, because it's 4 by 4. Easy? How about number 3? How big is the base and the height? 2, but that's a what? Cube. So what's the answer to number 3? Well, it'd be 2 cubed. Yes, would simplify to 8, but I would just write 2 cubed there. What's the answer to number 4? 9 squared. Easy? Now, 5 through 8. Some of these are really easy. Some of these are very common where people get them wrong. All right. What is the answer to number 5? What is 7 squared? 49. 7. This means, what's 7 times 7? The answer is 49. Easy? How about number 6? What does that mean? What am I going to multiply by itself 4 times? Negative 2. That means negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Now, is this going to end up being a positive number or a negative number? Why positive? Why positive? Why? Like, how do I know if it's going to be positive or negative? Like, this problem is not much different. Number 6 and number 7 are not much different. Number 6 is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 4 times. Doesn't number 7 mean negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 5 times. One of these is going to be positive, one of them is going to be negative. How do I know? If I have an even number of negative signs, the answer is always going to be positive. If I have an odd number of negative signs, the answer is going to end up being if it's even, it's positive. If it's odd, it's negative. Okay? And then it's just a matter of what is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2? 16. So this one's going to be positive 16. This one has another times 2, which is going to be, so it's negative 32. Right? But then you have a problem like this one. My question to you, how many negative signs does this one have? 1. It's got 1 out in front, and then it's positive a half times positive a half 4 times, right? 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 4 2's make 16. Is this answer going to be positive or negative? It's negative. It doesn't have 4 negative signs. It actually has 1. Does that make sense? Now, what if I gave you a problem like this? Do those 2 negative signs cancel each other out? No. Okay? Because if that 3 wasn't there, would you do a negative times a negative as a positive? You would. But we know order of operations. Do you take care of exponents first or do you multiply first? Exponents. So, my question is, how many negative signs does this one have? This is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 with an extra negative sign out in front. How many negative signs does this really have? 4, which means the answer should be positive. So this is going to be positive 8. A lot of people mess this kind of thing up when it gets negative of negative 2 to the 4th. A lot of people think this answer is positive 16 because a negative times a negative is a positive. But in all reality, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 negative signs, don't I? Which means the answer should be negative 16. Does that make sense? Just keep remembering, if you see the most commonly messed up problem is this. What do you think the people that get it wrong are going to write on their test? They're going to write, should the answer to this be positive or should it be negative? This should be, this is negative. In this case, is that negative to the 4th power? No. Only the 2 is to the 4th power. That negative is out in front. There's only one negative here. The answer should be negative 16, not positive 16. Okay? So if you see it written like this, just ignore that negative, figure out what 2 to the 4th power is, throw a negative back out in front. If they wanted 4 negatives, you would have had to write that. That means negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, which means I have 4 negative signs, which means it's positive 16. Are we clear on those? Good with that? All right. I want you to look at number 9. It says write 81 in base 9. 81 is the same thing as what? 9 is my base. How many 9s would I need to multiply together to get 81? Just 2 of them. So that's the answer to number 9. Number 10 says 100,000 is the same as what base 10? 10 to what power? How many 10s would I need to multiply together to get to 100,000? How many zeros does that have? There you go. 10 to the 5th power is 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 would be 100,000. Make sense? How about number 11? How would I write, this is a tricky one, negative 64 with base of negative 4? How many 4s do you think is 4 times 4? What's 4 times 4? 16. What do you think 16 times 4 is? All right, so how many 4s am I going to need? My exponent's going to be 3. Is this correct? Well, that would be the right answer as far as negative 64, but which of those two answers do you think the book wants in this particular case? What did they tell me to use as my base? It said to use negative 4, didn't it? What's my base in this problem? What is the only number that's raised to the power? The positive 4, isn't it? That negative is not my base. This is the correct answer, not that one. Even though in this case, are they actually the same answer if you simplify those? Yes, because I'd have 1 negative sign or 3 negative signs. Both are odd numbers. But be careful with those. Like number 14. It says write 36 in base what? Negative 6. So I got to put that in parentheses. How many negative 6s would I need to get to 36? Six times 6? 6 times 6 times 6 times 6 times 6 times 6. Just 2 of them, wouldn't it? Right? Are we good with those? Let's try that story problem. It says Jan wants to predict the number of hits she will get on her web page. Her web page received 3 hits the first week that it was posted. If the number triples each week, how many hits will the web page receive during the 5th week? So on the first week it was 3, right? How do I figure out the second week? Times it by 3. How do I get the third week? Times that by 3. How am I going to get the 5th week? 3 to the 5th power. And I don't really know what 3 to the 5th power is off the top of my head. I'd have to calculate that one. It's going to be a pretty big number. Fair enough? This stuff pretty easy?